All right, let's talk about low and mid back referral patterns, where I was poking on you, what is going on in my opinion. Clearly, since I've just seen you one time, I'm not going to go with a full-blown black and white diagnosis, but I'm going to give you the overview of what my brain is thinking of. So if you look at, these are called dermatomes, okay? So anywhere that you see a number and that color, that is where that level in your spine, so the T's stand for thoracic, the L's stand for lumbar, that is where that level goes for sensation, okay? So not necessarily for strength, but sensation, which is what I would show you, and this is a very anatomically correct model, so it is going to be a naked dude, just as a heads up. So where you get some tingling in your back on the right side is kind of around this area, but in your leg where you have decreased sensation, I won't call it full-blown numbness because you can feel it, but it is decreased, is kind of side of your thigh, front of your thigh. It went down. The only place you really didn't feel much of a difference was like right here on the ankles, lower down. So you'll see, obviously that's L4, L5. I didn't screen you all the way sensory like up higher, but as far as everything down here, you did have a little bit of funky. Now that does not mean that you have legitimate just damage or anything crazy up at those areas, but something is involved in that area that is changing the sensation in your leg. It correlates pretty darn well with where you're pretty uncomfortable. So when I was doing some joint moves on you in this area, which is this right here, and I'll show you in a second, is L4, L3. So in those zones, a little higher, a little lower, it was a little uncomfortable. So let's take off the dermatomes and let's look at actual spinal levels, and then we'll throw some muscles on here. So as far as where we're looking at in the spine, this is L5, L4, L3, so kind of in that zone where it was not feeling so awesome. L2, L1, and then we get into lower thoracic, so that's the 12th, 11th, and so forth. Okay, so the muscles that you did not like, you really did not care for this one to be poked on. So that's your quadratus lumborum. That is the one that when we're working with tennis ball or that blue ball that I'm going to get you, it connects top of the hip, comes up, see how it attaches to the side of the spine, and then it attaches to your bottom rib. The right one was not as bad. The left one definitely a little more when we were on the front side, hip flexors on the left, you felt more resistance on your side of things as far as it didn't feel like I was getting as deep. I agree. Right side definitely was a little bit tight when I was feeling it, but it wasn't necessarily painful. So all these things are just to show you how they attach to your spine, why you might be having that kind of constant funky feeling. With your hip flexors, when you're sitting all day long in class, they are in a shortened position. So then when you go and you stand, or you're doing a butterfly kick and you are arching your back, things like that, they can pull on these little attachments of your spine and pull your back more in like a forward position here. Not that it's really pulling it forward, but if you think about the way that you stand, if you stand and kind of let your hips shove forward and just kind of hang there, it just also promotes that. Whoops. All right, other thing I wanted you to be aware of, these muscles are super deep, so I'm about to add more layers on. And why I like needling is because this is a couple inches deep, and if you can see where it attaches, it's attaching in between the side of your spine and the back of your spine. So it sits really deep. It's underneath. It's those like tenderloins I was talking about. So if we add on more layers, this, anytime you see white, means it's just a really dense, basically fascial connection. So when I am using my hands, I really can't penetrate that. I can't really affect the tissue underneath it, but I can affect it with a needle. So that is why I like it so much. But if you can see when we're adding on, your serratus posterior. So since it attaches ribs down to your spine, a lot of times when you're taking those deep breaths, it is going to be pulling on your spine. So sometimes that's why we feel those popping feelings, because if it's real stiff in these areas and then we breathe a lot and it expands, we can actually feel that just releasing pressure in the spine. The other thing that sits on top of that quadratus lumborum, you have your obliques. So those were also not super comfortable on you. Clearly in freestyle and in backstroke, we do a lot of rotating through our trunk. If you are constantly breathing more to one side, like you said you were a right side breather, to breathe to the right, even if you just feel in this general area, you can feel that those muscles have to end up kicking in, right? Or if you're doing those Russian twists that you're talking about, when you're trying to rotate your body to the right, you're going to use your left oblique. So there's just a few puzzle pieces I'm trying to piece together on why you have the symptoms that you do. They're not super abnormal to me. I see this kind of stuff a lot. Just wanted to give you a visual. And then we add on the big lat. And in swimmers, lat is what does all of your big power pretty much. So your lats and your pecs. And we'll add on your... So pecs and lats are your power drivers. So the lat is what pulls your arm down. So all of the catch, the pulling, the power behind that is your lat, as well as your pec. It also pulls the arm down. Now, when they are tighter and really, really over-dominant, you get this classic swimmer posture where pecs are pulling you down this way, lats pulling you down this way. You get that kind of rounded forward posture. You get that rounding in your upper back. So what I'm doing when I'm having you do those alligators and those open books is it is stretching your pec a little bit. It's working on rotation through your upper back. And then when I had you angle your arm up a little bit, it is to help stretch out that lat. Because as you go overhead, you're going to be stretching out the lat. So we'll just go through a couple motions that the lat does. It pulls your shoulder back. So think breaststroke, butterfly when those shoulder blades are having to pull back. It is also going to be pulling your arm in to the body. Right? So again, with all of your pulling straight down and bringing it in towards your body underneath you before you're recovering, lats for days. And all of that attaches straight to the spine also. All right, so hopefully that gives you a pretty good overview. The nerves are the only other thing I want to show you on here. So if we go and we add on your nerves, I'm going to add on all of them, and then I'm going to take these muscles off so we can kind of get a visual. So where you're saying you get some tingling sensations, in that area of your back, you've got lots of nerves that are in this area. And if something is irritated in here, let me add on one thing so to show you your disc space. So when I talk about disc bulging, anything like that, the disc is this right in between each vertebra. So it's showing you the whole layer, but the disc is just this part in between each one. But if you can see, you have nerve endings that come out of each level of your spine. So if you have some pressure or irritation, things like that, and it touches these little sensory nerves here, let's see if I can tap on one. What it does the little bitty muscles and the stabilizers. I'm trying to get a different one to click. All right, so this muscle right here does sensory, meaning skin sensation, to this part of your back. And when I was working on you right here, where I was talking about where it's the bottom of the ribs, transitions into lumbar, most people with a little bit of scoliosis curve will get it here. So just a little irritation can make this feel tingly. So not necessarily anything crazy, but I do want to calm down all the irritation in that area.